Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is do a quick round of introductions for our panel, and then I've got some pre-prepared questions, although we'll just kind of see how the discussion flows. Firstly, if our two representatives from Gateshead Council would like to just sort of wave and identify themselves, unmute, and then just kind of introduce themselves, maybe just your name, your role, and one particular highlight from the film, please. Hazel, do you want to go first?
Yes, hello. Fabulous film, very, very powerful. I must admit I've spent a lot of time, 38 years working with young people as students, and then wondering what happened and what support was there for them when they were 16 and left the system. I have to say that that was very thought-provoking, very, very thought-provoking. And it's very sad to know that in the years since a few years since I've been retired, nothing really seems to have improved, and that mental health and health generally is still a huge issue for young people. Thank you.
Okay, Ben, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ben Van Wastendonk. I'm a service manager for Care for Children and Young People Services and Care Experience Children and Young People, but also children with disabilities, and that's who I am. In terms of the film, I think for me, it highlights a number of things that we're aware of and that we try to resolve. I think as work is around loneliness for children and young people who've been care experienced. I think that's something that I've spoken to children about for the last 20 years that I've worked with them, really, as they leave care, and about the support and the responsiveness of that. I think, you know, the idea that I guess there should be more responsive support for children and young people that's available not just Monday to Friday, and I think that's something that you know, we've spoken about a lot.
Thank you, Ben. Do we have any of the young people who were part of the video who'd like to say something? Alan, hi. It's great to see you again.
Hi. If you couldn't tell, I was the only one that was drawn digitally and was super embarrassed. I just wanted to say hi. I'm Alan. Ben, Zoom keeps popping up saying that your bandwidth is low. I'd suggest turning off your camera, and then it'll just prioritize your voice instead.
Alan, what I'll do is I'll connect back to the Wi-Fi issue, because I had issues with the Wi-Fi in the council building. But first of all, can I say it's really nice to see you, Alan.
Nice to meet you too, Ben.
It's been a long time, hasn't it, since we've seen each other, but it's nice to see you.
With it blurry, it's difficult to see if it's the Ben that I'm. Like, I know a lot of people call Ben, so it's a little bit difficult to remember
my face.
Right, I'm just going to kind of move forward a little, but there's some time at 6 if you guys want to catch up. So anyone else from Gateshead want to kind of make themselves known? Hi.
Hi, it's Aisha here, who's going to be on one of the panel members, Victoria.
Hi, Aisha.
Hi. She was trying to get away without speaking. And then I think Zoe from next door. Come on, Zoe. I know you can hear us.
You don't have to talk, but you can give us a wave. Hi, guys.
Hi, I just wanted to say hello as well. I've just joined. I've been in another meeting. Sorry, I'm late, but I've just joined you from commissioning in Gateshead, from Children's Commissioning.
Thank you. Welcome. What about? Oh, sorry. Anyone else?
Newcastle.
Newcastle now. If our panelists from Newcastle could just wave to the audience and make themselves known, and just a quick introduction, name, role, a highlight from the film.
I just want to say hi, I'm Reese. That's all I want to say.
Hi,
one
Reese.
Of the young people. Hi. I was one of the young people that was in care and that, and talking about the self-harm and stuff. I've had support with that. But I think there still needs more support around that type of stuff in the care system. That's it.
Thank you. And any of the people from representing Gateshead Council want to just say hi as well? Hi there.
Hello, it's Bev from Smith here, Leaving Care Team Manager.
Hi Bev, thank you for joining us tonight. Do you have a particular highlight from the film that you want to share?
I mean, I've seen it a few times now, and I think it's raises some interesting issues. I think no matter how long you work with care leavers, it always highlights that we have professionals have a lot to learn from young people who've left care. And as well as that, I think I'm always astounded by their resilience.
Thank you. And did we have another member of Gateshead Council team who was joining us tonight?
I don't think so. Andrea's given apologies.
Yes, so I have seen Andrea's apologies. I wasn't sure if anyone else had made it in her place. We have a representative from Nexus joining us as well today. So would you like to say hi?
Hi everyone, my name is Claire Tully. I'm the Stakeholder Relations Officer for Nexus. What I took from the video, which was a very powerful video by the way, and well done to everyone who was involved and spoke up about their experiences. It is thought-provoking and it gives you a lot to think about. It's easy to think life's easy, but it can not be for certain people, and we all have our ups and downs, but it's good to see so many youngsters expressing their thoughts, what they feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And finally, from the CCG, I believe we had two representatives joining our panel tonight, and that was Lynn Wilson and Catherine Richardson. No? Linda.
Hi,
it's Lynn. I don't know if you can hear me. Hello?
Hello, yes, we can hear you.
The Lord for that. It's very sorry, I'm on my phone. It's the only way I could make the meeting tonight. But the video was brilliant, very inspiring. I think, for me, I'm just amazed that children can leave care at the age of 16. I don't know how they do it. So I actually work in health and in the local authority. I'm a joint appointment. But whichever hat I've got on, I just really feel for our care leavers. I think 16 is so young, 18 is young. You know, my lads were in their 20s before they left home, and I think one of them is coming back. But so I just think that there's so much to learn from life before you're in that situation to cope well. I think from a health perspective, I would ask, what can we do better in terms of supporting, you know, children and young people's mental health, for example? From a local authority perspective, I would say, what can we do better for our care leavers, you know, to support them at that very tender young age? I think it's a massive worry. And I am also a foster carer. Thank God I've never got to the point where the kids are old enough to leave home, because, you know, hopefully they're not going to go anywhere when they're 16, 18 or 20 even. You know, they need to be settled into life. So they're my concerns. I don't know if you can still hear me.
We can, Lynn. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good, I thought you'd gone there. I've got a headset on, I've got my phone, I'm in the car, so yeah.
Well, thank you, appreciate the effort joining.
Victoria, we've got Newcastle representatives, we've got the young people here, and we've got Kaylee Banks.
Hi there.
Our service manager.
Hello. Hi.
Is there anything you want to ask? Yeah.
Hi, Victoria. I'm Kaylee Banks. I'm the service manager. Hi. Sorry, my the audio keeps breaking up, so I hope I'm not interrupting anybody speaking. So I have a similar job to Ben who spoke earlier from Gateshead. So I've seen the video prior to tonight, but like everybody, very thought provoking. I think one of the things that keeps coming through is around access to health services, and particularly mental health services post 16 to 18 and post 18. So I think you know, it highlights that again, the video, and it's something that I know that we're all in discussions with, and I have met with some of our young people who are here tonight since you made the video, and I know they've thoroughly enjoyed being part of this this experience. So yeah, I think it's definitely something. There's lots of things to take from this video.
Yeah, I can't really hear that.
Thank you very much. That's really insightful. And Shaz, do you and your young people have anything you want to add? You want to say a quick hello?
Just going to introduce themselves, say hello.
Hello, I'm John Wilson. I'm a care leaver. I'm from 16. I'm with 16 plus, and I do CPAC, and I did DigitalMe, and I did Eve panel funding.
You enjoyed it?
Yeah,
DigitalMe?
I enjoyed DigitalMe. Yeah.
And Chris?
Yeah, hi, I'm Christopher. Yeah, I'm also part of the 16 plus group, as well as I was also part of the DigitalMe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got another panel member here.
Yeah.
We've got Charles,
Hi,
service manager.
Charles Shipley, team manager, 16 plus team, and have worked with the young people in Shaz through the length of the kind of the DigitalMe project. Again, just echoing what other people have said about great piece of work, and it's going to be invaluable in terms of training and induction of some new staff, some foster carers, new social workers, etc., etc. I think it'll be great to roll that out and people to see it and hear those issues kind of first time. I think it's really helped young people as well.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourselves. We've got an absolutely packed Zoom room today, so it's quite hard for me to keep across everyone, but I will do my absolute best. So we're going to give the panel a chance to kind of have their thoughts. And what we're going to do is we're kind of going to open with one of the issues that came out from the video, which was travel. Hence, we invited along Claire Tully on behalf of Nexus, but obviously the young people have all expressed their own opinions as well. Travel was one of the universal themes that came up in the film. So we'll start with the young people who are with us tonight. Does anyone want to kind of reinforce or repeat or say anything new about the experience of trying to afford travel?
Okay. I feel like travel is a big issue because I feel like it's too expensive to travel around, and it's like £4.30 a day is like about like plus 20 quid a week, and then you got to think about food and stuff and all of that jazz, and it's just not viable. Especially when you got to have appointments and stuff of that nature.
Absolutely. So Claire, obviously, because we're going to keep to a tight time schedule, is there any way you could just sort of focusing on the idea of young care leavers and accessing their healthcare appointments rather than generally young people? Is there anything that Nexus either have in mind or could be proposed to them in terms of making especially travel to healthcare appointments more achievable?
Yeah, thank you very much. We do recognise that is a major need for that concession for the travel to care or carer travel to appointments. But because it's a new concession, it does carry a price tag. And we are talking at the moment with the local councils and the bus companies about how this could be afforded and how we could afford to do such a scheme. But we are talking at the higher level in our organisations to see how we can get this in place.
Okay. Could I ask if any of the people who work with young people, Ben, I see you've got your hand up as well. Do you have any questions or points you'd like to raise about perhaps your own frustrations or what you feel could be done? Ben, we'll start with you, and then if anyone wants to add to that, we can go from there.
Yeah, I just think there's a wider point. I've got so much sympathy for the situation that young people find themselves in, because health appointments are often quite disparate. You know, they're not like in one place. You know, you'd be asked to travel quite a long way from your house to go and see a specialist potentially, or to go to different hospitals for different things that you might need. And I think probably one of my concerns as well is that what we end up with is, for lots of young people who are on very limited financial or have very limited finances, is that they get fined quite often on metros. It gets them into debt, it gets them into situations, and we can offer to support them with some of those things. But I do think it's not a sustainable sort of solution, and I'm really heartened that Claire's saying that there's some conversations around that, because I do think that this comes to the heart of corporate parenting responsibility, and the fact that, you know, for no fault of, you know, the young people that are here today, or any of the young people that we work with, have found themselves in a situation where they are being looked after away from their birth family. And we've all got a responsibility then to support them as adults as well. And that, for me, isn't just Children's Services responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility. It's society's responsibility, isn't it? And I sometimes feel that that's something that we need to work on, really.
Do any of the other workers want to add anything to what Ben or Claire's just said there? And then we'll come back to the young people and see what their thoughts are on that.
Can I just?
It's just sorry. Go ahead.
It's Lynn again. We had this conversation pre-COVID, so I'm talking probably at least 2 years ago, if not longer, in the local authority. So it'd be interesting to see where that's progressed to. And I can remember it was all directors and chief exec who were around the table at the time, and there was going to be that conversation with the bus company. So I don't know if, Ben, it was probably before your time, but it might be worth following that one up again.
And just so we can keep it moving, Linda, did you want to make a point? Sorry there.
Yeah, I was just adding into that, really. I think when you're looking at health services and that, when, you know, they're going through their rosters and giving out health appointments, etc., and that, I honestly don't think it would be top of their list to think, especially for young people, how they're going to get to the appointments. And I think obviously things like the recent with the pandemic, having to go to for the 16 and 17-year-olds having to go to get COVID immunisations, they haven't always been provided on the doorstep. So again, that's a travel issue. And again, it would be awful to think that they haven't received immunisations through, you know, because of the inability to be able to afford to travel there to get that. And I think health services need to be aware of the travel issue, of the actual accessing travelling to appointments.
Thank you. Yeah, Chris, you've got your hand raised.
Thanks, Victoria. Just to say that, so I'm Chris Hume, Children's Rights Officer for Gateshead, and I know that some of my regional colleagues on the call. Across the region, we've got quite a strong regional Children in Care Council, and we know from colleagues in the south of the northeast, so Stockton and Teesside authorities, they worked with their transport providers and the local authority together in partnership, and they offer young people in care or care leavers a third off travel costs working together. So there is some good practice in the region that we can actually learn from. And Claire, we can put you in contact with those people if that would help.
But Chris, I'm just thinking, you know, how some people who go to hospital can claim back their travelling expenses. Could we not have a care leavers card? Sorry, I'm trying to find somewhere quiet. A care leavers card where if you go to your GP or you go to hospital, you can produce that and reclaim your travel expenses. I'm sure we could do something like that.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to either? Oh, Ruth, yes, I see you have a hand raised, Ruth.
Yeah, I think it was just to say that I think probably for some young people, they would be eligible to reclaim specific travel expenses to hospital appointments. But I think that in itself is not the easiest thing to do. You know, you have to fill in a form and you have to get the right form and send it to the right place. And then if you're doing, if you have to go to a few appointments, you have to sort of repeat the process. So I think there is potentially ways that people could claim now, and I guess it's important to support young people to be able to access what is already available if it is appropriate for them, depending on what different benefits they might be accessing. But I think it's also important, just from listening to what people have said, it isn't necessarily, it's not just about accessing health appointments, it's about being healthy generally, isn't it? And actually people have been talking on that film about I think loneliness came through to me, and sort of, you know, isolation, and then that's maybe prompted people to go down routes that maybe wasn't that great for them. So people have mentioned sort of drinking and drugs and things, and actually it's about social isolation, isn't it? So it's not, from my mind, it isn't just thinking about, okay, how can we help people access a health appointment, because a lot of people, you know, wouldn't necessarily need to be traveling to lots and lots of appointments, but it's also just about being able to get about and see people and have the chance to you know, have those things that make us healthy generally. So I would be inclined to be looking at, you know, that as a whole concept about accessing travel and accessing the city, rather than just accessing individual health. But yeah, I mean, there are ways of claiming back, and it is important to be aware of that and a help to do that when.
So bringing it back to the young people who are with us today, obviously you've heard a lot of kind of suggestions and ideas about, you know, travel passes and reclaiming expenses and how difficult that can be. But just kind of picking up on that idea of loneliness, a lot of the things that came out of the film for me was about, you know, needing that support when attending an appointment, you know, not having to go on your own. So does anyone feel that they have something they can say on, you know, how much support they get attending appointments? Do you want to have people there with you, and, you know, or perhaps even to help you just fill out the paperwork after the fact, or signpost you to the right services? How do you feel about that?
Okay,
I see you've got your hand raised there, although I'm pretty sure your name's not Chris Hume.
I'm not Chris, by the way. No, like, just on top of what that Ruth said, like, it is hard, like, especially like for your mental health and that, because you can't really go anywhere. Like where I live, there's nowhere to walk, so like you're just stuck, because there's literally like nowhere to go.
So in terms of like maintaining physical and mental health,
Yeah,
that's quite hard.
Like my mental health's gone like really bad because I've had no money to go like anywhere, and I've had no motivation to go out.
Yeah. Aisha, do you have something you wanted to add to that? I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just for like me, mainly with like turning 18 and kind of your mental health support, there is nothing for care leavers. And it seems like, you know, your like statutory help, so like NHS or whatever, there's like the waiting lists are high sky, and kind of like unless you're mentally ill, you won't get any help. And I found that like normally before, when you were in care and stuff, you'd have so much support, and the social worker could like signpost it like, we saw that service. But literally the minute you turn 18, you're like, I've had to self-refer myself to like counselling and stuff, and no one else has done it for me apart from myself. Or I've had to say to my foster carer, oh, can you please do it? But a lot of people like don't have that option, and they're not staying put in it by themselves. But that was like a big thing for me, that like you had to do it yourself.
Thanks, Aisha. That's really insightful. Does anyone want to respond to that and either agree or look at ways that we could maybe try and aim to improve that in terms of support and signposting mental health?
Hi, it's Lynn again.
Hi,
and
Lynn.
I'm not going to try and defend this because I know the issues that are there. Currently, we're investing in the voluntary sector, so the likes of Children's North East Streetwise and North East Counselling Services, to get those waiting lists down. And I think the voluntary services are fairly okay, but I know there are still waiting times for the Mental Health Trust and South Tyneside, who do our emotional wellbeing service. So we want to invest more in the voluntary sector this year to be able to take more of them from the trusts and get the waiting times down. So that's one of the things that we're doing. And like I say, I'm not defending the service because this is a big worry for me. We've also got Couth, which is an online service that anybody in Gateshead can access. And we have plugged that in all of the schools in Gateshead, but I'm honestly still not sure how well known it is to children and young people. But you can access free online services, for example, with a psychologist, you know, where you can email, text, or whatever, phone, whatever media you want to use. So there are things out there, but are still here, you know, young people who can't access services or who are left to try and navigate their way through those services themselves. So
Thank you. Just to come back to Stephen, who's
It's something that I've
got a hand
recently picked
raised
up, and
as well.
for that I do apologise.
So Stephen, you've got a general comment that you've put in the chat box about coming back to travel. Do you want to say anything, or do you want me to read that out?
Yeah, I feel like the main issue that it is obviously alongside getting to health appointments and that sort of thing is a problem, and also general socialisation. But I feel like that there's just not enough working together between, say, for example, travel and our 16+ teams, or the health services and our 16+ teams. I feel like it would just generally be better if the company started working more together to come up with these solutions, rather than, say, if they're working on their own thing, or they've got their own projects for like projects in general for the general public, which obviously with some stuff we need, but I feel like there should be more regular dialogue between the different sort of like authorities, if you will, just to get more regular feedback.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. John and Chris, I see you've got your hands up as well. Did one of you have something to add to that?
Yeah. Well, the thing is about me, I like traveling. Well, I have to travel down to college, and say like after lockdown, I couldn't sign up for a bursary. So it says I was struggling to actually basically get money back for when I was traveling down, as well as that, like I do have a universal credit. I used that my own money to go down to college, but luckily I had support from Shaz with that. But
what about seeing your friends as well? You couldn't.
Yeah, as well as I couldn't actually see my friends as well in like even the natural town, because I also used my own money for college. Yeah.
Also, regarding the Gateshead and us as as our group, and Northumberland and Stockton or whatever, is it maybe an idea to do once a monthly sessions with all regional councils in the northeast to look at that.
Yeah, better communication and sharing ideas and good ways of doing things, definitely. Ben, you've had your hand raised, and then I'll open a couple of questions to the kind of wider audience for the panel. People can either pop those in the chat, or if you know how to use the raise hand function, you'll be able to do that. Okay, but Ben, you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that what Asia was talking about before. I think there's a number of different things. One of them is that, you know, there's a number of children and young people that we work with who have been seeing a regular person from Children and Young People Service for quite a while. And I think there's some stuff that we need to get right in terms of transitions into adult services around that, and making sure that, you know, young people have like a gradual handover of their care needs. But then I think there's a separate issue to that, which is the responsiveness to young people's mental health crisis, if you like. So, you know, when you do find yourself in your flat on your own for the first time, and maybe it's exciting at first, but then over time it becomes harder and more difficult and impacts on your mental health. The responsiveness to that, I think, is a real issue, and that's what Lynn was highlighting from, you know, services in the voluntary sector like Streetwise and other people who might be able to fill that. But what we need to make sure we do is we promote that, and we make sure that people are aware of those services and able to access them when they need to. But I think there is definitely something we need to work on around that transition of care for our young people as they turn into adults.
Thank you.
And just on the travel issue as well, I mean, one of the things I was going to ask is, I mean, I think for me it is definitely something that we need to look at, but I think we ask a lot of young people, you know, that they're moving out on, you know, you're moving into your own place for the first time, you know, all the stuff we've talked about and that you've talked about in your video about loneliness and all the other things. But then to ask young people to have the bravery to say, actually, I can't get that appointment because I haven't got the money, that's putting a lot of pressure on people. You know, that doesn't make people feel good about themselves. It's a hard thing to do, isn't it, to be honest about that? And we need to support you more with that. And I totally take that on board. We ask a lot of you, really.
Alan, you've got your hand raised?
It took me a while to figure out how to raise my hand. I was actually raising it in physicality, but
Sorry, I didn't see you there.
It's all right. The background was kind of breaking it a bit. But I agree with Ben on that sense that a lot of people wouldn't have the kind of courage to ask for like reimbursement on certain things. And there's also the fact that a lot of people would be a little. It would be better if like say social workers and give me 3 seconds. Advisors could identify some of the issues and then point them towards places that could help with mental health stuff, because there's people like me who doesn't like outright saying it, as I mentioned in the video, because we might feel a little embarrassed, or we might feel that it might be attention seeking or something.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a really good point, and you have made it really well. I'm just going to let Maxine know that I'm going to ask your question next, and then I'm going to come back to John and Chris on Shaz's screen, and Richard Clark also has a question. So I have seen that you've been waiting. So Maxine's question: somebody mentioned in the video a need for a dedicated team for care leavers, and I would like to ask the young people who should be in that dedicated team. So does anyone want to take up that one?
That was Richard. I think Richard in his or one of the young people, sorry, when they were talking about that, mentioned about a hub sort of that you could go to just to get that little bit of general advice and guidance. So I'm not sure if Richard had spoke to me once about that.
Okay. Richard, do you want to add anything to that? So a dedicated team for care leavers.
I suppose a team around care leavers would be very essential, because as young children become young teenagers to adults, there's not that smooth transitional period, and sometimes it can be very rushed and very intense and intimidating for those young people growing up. Especially me as an older care leaver, growing up, I found transitional period stages to be very, well, yes, intense, you know. And I discussed that briefly within the DigitalMe presentation, that the transition can be very, you know, rushed and very intense as you get older, when you move forward through social workers and other agencies that combined as well.
I'm going to come back to you for your question that you had as well, Richard, but I'm just going to return to John and Chris on Shaz's screen there. You've still got a question or something to elaborate on?
No, it was just something that the young people wanted more to raise, but didn't know kind of how to say, and it was an issue of making appointments when they have appointments with a community psychiatric nurse, so they have appointments with the CPNs. If they miss 3 appointments, then they get closed as a case. So they would be ended their involvement. So they'd have to go back to that GP to get reallocated to a community psychiatric nurse, which they find really, really difficult to do that. So would rather not go and follow up than obtain the service.
Does anyone want to respond to that, or perhaps share a similar experience?
Could I was just going to say that I think one of the things that I've had colleagues with, conversations with various health colleagues about throughout the years is tenacity, really, and the tenacity from professionals. Because I do think that we need to acknowledge that, as I've said before, we're asking a lot of our young people, and we do often. And if we ask a lot of them, then we also need to ask a lot of ourselves. And some of that's about the tenacity that professionals have in going back and continuing to try and engage children and young people. I think quite often, the young people that I've worked with, when you see people write about them, they talk about that they fail to engage. And I think really we need to start to reframe that, really, to be about actually professionals have failed to engage with them. And I think that's the narrative that we need to use around that much more. as services really that support both care leavers and other young people really.
Okay, can I just return to you, Richard? Did you have a question?
I did earlier on the chat, but I think somebody had replied to that in terms of being more support for the more older care leavers around their mental health, because I've just turned 24 and some of the services are 25 and under. So I'm becoming very anxious that there's not going to be those services there for the more older care leavers that are, you know, ready to leave altogether, and will be signposted. Okay, I've got 3 more. So I've got Aisha and let's see who else we've got with a hand raised. Can I return to Newcastle just for a second? So we've got Kaylee. Do you want to make a point there?
Yeah, it was just similar to what Ben was saying around tenacity. I think the other thing for me around, and you know, appointments, any appointments with that our care leavers or our young people have, it's around flexibility as well. And it also links to Linda's point around the awareness about, you know, when we're setting appointments with young people about how they're going to get them and things like that. It all links, doesn't it? So it's about being tenacious and as professionals, but also being flexible and being aware of when we're setting appointments with young people, you know, are they going to be able to get there? Do they need support with that? You know, are we signposting young people to the right provision? But also, I think from one of the things that I've took from the video and just, you know, from this discussion is really around going back to the people that I've got in my service who are supporting young people and making sure that they're fully aware of what services are out there, and not just for our younger care leaders, but taking on Richard's point, sort of post 25 as well, so that we have that information to share and we're able to support our young people. So there was just those points really that I wanted to make, because we need to be making it as easy for our young people to access the support and have that support available as we possibly can, and that goes across all of the services trying to support our young people.
Thank you. I'm just going to be wrapping up in a couple of minutes, but we had and it makes perfect sense to have the final word be with our young people. So Aisha, yours was first, I think.
Yeah, so like I've had a similar experience where I was on the waiting list of the community treatment team, like the psychiatric, for 6 months. And then because I didn't attend one appointment and rang them back up and said, like, I'm so sorry, I missed an appointment by accident as well, that they just took me off the waiting list purely because I hadn't rang the crisis team or hadn't been in touch with them about like saying that I was struggling. And they were like, well, we assume that you're doing really well and stuff, and you've missed one appointment, so we've took you off and we just referred you back to your GP. And I thought, like, you can't discharge someone when you haven't even treated them and they've been on the wait. And like, I thought, like, just because I'm not your atypical patient and I'm not, like, I don't ring up every day and say that I'm in crisis, doesn't mean I'm struggling, and I shouldn't have to prove that I'm struggling to like receive help. Like that's not how it should work. And I think that's like a recurring theme throughout like actually my whole time in care, that you have to like show that you're struggling and that you have to prove it. And it shouldn't have to be that thing. You should be able to just say that I'm struggling and you should receive that help and be deserving of that help.
Thank you. And to be so open and honest as well about your personal experiences. I know that's not always an easy thing to do. So, you know, it's really appreciated that you're sharing that, and it'll hopefully be something that the workers here today can listen to and take forward and act on as well. So I've got one final hand raised, and that's one of our Gateshead young people. So what's your question or comment?
It was just like mental health is quite hard because like I'm with the, as Thingy said, I'm with the community treatment team, and I had like a long waiting list, and then I've had no access to them really because mine's just came back after 3 months off. So like I've had no help, and she hasn't really helped us before then, but she's been off for 3 months. So I've had like random people ringing us, and it's just not really ideal. Because I'm dead fussy with talking to people, so I need like someone consistent. Where she's like on, then off, then in, then off all the time.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair point, and one that we certainly do hear, you know, within the social services about turnovers of staff and within healthcare services as well. And, you know, it's obviously one that impacts on the relationships with patients and things.